Hello and welcome to my new video. Finally, I found the time to make my darkroom dark. From my personal experience, the cheapest and easiest way to find anything completely not transparent is just to buy this not transparent blinder on a roll. And in my case, because I will completely shut down this window, I want to mount it and forget about it. And my solution in this case, just using velcros and sticky tape. Unfortunately, it takes a lot of time for me, and from the first attempt I tried to use my old style velcro tape, and it's actually quite good, but I was not really satisfied with the gaps on top side. So basically I have a light leaks on the top side of the window, and this is one of the worst parts where you can tape the blinder and you have a leaks. It's almost impossible to remove this light leak on top. Honestly, I'm thinking about the really good solution to make Darkroom and Darkroom blinder, and so far I don't see anything on the market. So if you have any ideas on really good solutions and not like these DIY solutions, put it in the comment below, because I think this is kind of a tricky part for most of the people, and especially doors. As you can see here, I have a gap between the door and gap between the frame of the door on the left and on the right side. So I think the cheapest way, if you want to improve a little bit the light leaks, what I tried is use a foil, and just the cheapest cooking foil. You can reduce light leaks on the sides. But after some tries, I completely eliminate this solution and just go with a more expensive way. As a first step, I degrease everything and I bought this tested tape. This is basically whitish Velcro, and you can mount it on any type of surface. It's not really cheap, so it's quite expensive stuff for what it is. But I prefer to pay once, cry once. If it works, I glad, and I can easily remove this blinder from the window and get the window back. And if I need to reapply it, I just reapply it with a Velcro and I have zero light leaks and zero problems. It's a good solution, but not perfect. I think only one good thing in Germany about the window, it's actually the total blindness what you can make. So you basically press the button and rollets just go down and you have complete darkness in the room. Unfortunately, as I understand, this type of solutions works perfectly and make total blindness only if it's a part of the window. And windows here in Denmark have completely different structure and completely different look. And because the manual says I need to tape the hook part on top of the window and the Velcro part on top of the things what I will remove, I will do this in a way. I just applying the second portion on top, and I want to remove the sticky tape and tape everything. So I try to align it perfectly, and I have probably like half centimeter from the left and right side overlap of this blanket, and on top I have much more, around like 10 centimeters. I don't want to cut it because in some cases it's better to not cut it, and you can fold it up on top and tape it. And basically you will increase the size of the light lock. For the door, I don't really find any kind of a good solution. So first thing, I want to eliminate the dust. So this door more or less will be always closed. So I bought this tape with the rubber peep shape sealing for the window, and if you close it up, it's getting snug and you have no air convection, and especially you don't really have a light leaks on the sides. For the bottom part, I bought this brush for the doors, and in a supermarket I actually check it with the flashlight on my phone. So I think in length it's 1 meter, so I just cut it in size and mount it on the bottom side of the door. I think you can find a better solution to make this gap on the bottom side of the door completely not transparent. For example, in Germany, in my apartment, I have better doors. They was thick and the gap under the door was like literally few millimeters. So after some time, I'm even not paying attention to put anything under the door because it was no light there at all. But in my case here, I need to be a little bit DIY and put some holes and screw it down on the bottom portion of the door and hope the problem will be solved. I like this solution better than something which you tape on top of the door, because this solution actually looks really good, and in the same time it doesn't really change the function of the door. It will be closing a little bit tough, so because you have no gaps at all, and it's light tight, and it means it's a little bit airtight. But as I said before, I have envision of the darkroom not like a darkroom, but as a clean room where you have no dust, and in the same time it's actually white and you can work without any problems and don't care about the dust on your negatives, on your scans, and you can process chemicals there because you have an air inlet and outlet, and you can open the second window, which is dark window. And basically when I mount the door back, I have this brush on the bottom side, and it's completely sealing this gap, and it's a little bit long, but in general everything works fine. I don't want to really go completely crazy with the light leaks. You need to keep in mind that even if you see the light leaks across the room and it's like 3 meters and it's like small gap somewhere, it doesn't really matter. So basically it's a diffused light on top of some, gap, and it will completely gone in few meters to the distance of your paper. So you don't really care about this type of things, only if you work with a pure negative and you want to develop, 8x10 color negative in a tray or something like this, which I honestly advise you to not do, because it even sounds a little bit stupid. From my personal point of view, this is not confined surface and not confined chemicals, and I don't really like the work this way. At the moment, as you probably hear from my voiceovers, it's not really perfect space for the sound and really not perfect space for the lights, and so far I need to solve these problems in the next videos. Honestly, I don't really want to work with the sink in the room, and I want a semi-dry darkroom. What I mean by that, I want to have a tool which is actually can work without any excess of water and can rinse and can do everything in a confined space. And if you really think and if you really care about it, so I worked a lot in the chemical lab, and in principle you never have access to water. So you have a sink and you can pour the chemicals back and forward and so on and so forth, but you never put it in a drain. So, and today I want to make the new RA4 chemistry from Adox, and I'm not really happy from the beginning because, for example, for now, I don't really like the quality. For example, Color Developer have some residues inside the bottle, but it's a fresh, brand new bottle and stored in a dark, cold place. So I don't really know what's really happens with this chemical. But for my first test prints, I hope it will be fine. But from the first glance, it looks a little bit diluted and a little bit not on the point what the Tetanol can do. And exactly the same goes with the bleach fix, and I think it's just diluted more. So the price difference probably lays down in the concentration of the chemicals and not really different from the Tetanol. But I hope in general it will work and I will have no problems whatsoever with the development itself. So let's load some negatives from the Copenhagen and try tests. And keep in mind, I want to recalibrate my color calibrator. So today I will just load the random negative and go from the beginning with the time and try to find the perfect timing for my development with a new chemistry. At the moment, it's a little bit awkward to work in this new darkroom. First of all, I have a lot of space, strange light, a lot of echo, and the room looks a little bit empty. But you need to start somewhere, and I think this is a really good point to start, and you can grow from there and create a lot of stuff. But I think mostly it really depends on you, on the viewer, and if people like what I'm doing here, I will invest more time in the filming and more time in delivering some interesting projects and some interesting things in my darkroom. But now I want to try to make it a little bit more functional for me and more functional for film development and printing. And the one positive side of my darkroom at the moment, I can keep everything neat and clean, and in the same time I don't need to disassemble anything, so I can make a printing session like a half an hour or something like this and keep everything in the room, just close the door and go back in the next day. I start with the exposure and make a grade from the 6 seconds up to 20 seconds, and I want to find out what is a perfect exposure for this type of chemicals and for F11 on the same negative. I'm not sure how it will work, but from the manual it says exactly the same timing for RA4 chemistry, so I will go with exactly the same settings and just keep development and find the proper settings for this type of chemical. I will use it as two-part solution for now, first of all because it says in the manual, and secondly because it's just faster and easier for me to continue printing for now. Nevertheless, all the chemicals from the ADOX looks a little bit too diluted. I'm not sure if it will be the same time and the same density of the development, or especially if I will have exactly the same output of the paper from these chemicals. And as additional point, I think my small safe light a little bit too small for this room. Probably I need to set it up and point it directly on the enlarger from the 1 meter distance as I said in the manual, and not just point it in the top side of my ceiling. Because for my eyes it takes a lot of time to adapt and navigate in this room with this type of light. I think inside this Yoba light is just one LED and it's really dim and really light, and probably it's too small for my relatively big darkroom at the moment. So in first test result looks actually quite good, so I don't really have any problems with the light leaks. I have a pure white and I have a really good contrast, and I will stick with the timing of 20 seconds f11 on this distance and try to keep with the printing in the same way. And as a next step, I put everything in my lab book, and starting from there, I can make changes with the color balance because at the moment it's a little bit off. Not sure if it's a temperature or if it's a chemicals, but it doesn't really matter, and I just need to improve my printing from this point on and stick with the same settings for the future and adapt my color analyzer for this type of settings. Because picture was a little bit too yellow, I corrected and make more filtration on the yellow and more filtration on magenta just in case. Because on my test printer I have set of 6 points, I can basically print from 6 points on, and I have initial setting and setting with a 5-step to decrease yellow, so basically increasing yellow filtration, and exactly the same from the initial point and decreasing magenta, so basically increasing magenta filter. And I hope the result will be really fine and my test print will show up me the correct color balance and correct exposure. At the moment it's not really easy to guess the color, so the sky looks a little bit reddish, so I will try to improve this with the filtration of magenta also a little bit. And sometimes I cannot say if it's a magenta or it's basically a red channel, so both channels. But in this video I will not go in completely fixing all the problems with the print. I just want a good print, and if it will work reliably, I have no light leaks, I have no problem with the chemicals, and in the same time I have no problems with the development. It should be fine and I will be happy. So when I made all the corrections, I have a correction chart and I can select the perfect correction. For example, this one in the middle, and this is my correction which I put on my enlarger head, and from there I can print bigger prints. And unfortunately my first one had a problem with the one stripe of the water drop in the middle of the picture. So the quickest solution how to fix it, you basically put a note inside your lab book, and usually you just forget to shake or completely dry out your tools. Because I don't work in the bathroom anymore, I need to wipe everything by hand multiple times, and most commonly the drop came from the lid and not. So you reprint it and hope everything works fine, and be more careful with your prints. For my taste, the sky looks a little bit reddish. Probably it's better to correct it, but for now I think it's fine. First print in my darkroom. It's a little bit awkward to work and a little bit awkward to film inside this darkroom so far, but I will improve it in future. So thank you for watching and see you in the next videos.